All right, so welcome back everybody to the show. This is episode 276, and I have a special guest with me today, my good friend Aaron Schiller. And Aaron has quite a story to share with us. And I would encourage you to check out his episode 39 of the podcast he does with his wife, and it's called Muse and the Catalyst. So that will give you even more backstory on what we're going to be chatting about today. But for now, let's just dive in. So, Aaron, why are we here today? What in the heck has happened over the past couple of months?
Yeah, it's been quite the wild ride, and thanks for having me on it. It was fun even just hearing you say that I have a story to tell because I don't. It's so fresh that I don't know that I think of it as a story. It's sort of my life right now, and
Yes.
I am starting to get some sense that what's going on in my life is somewhat helpful to other people who are going through whatever they're going through. And in my situation, been living a blessed life, have a wonderful family. Been really living an intentional life, full of all the things that I know you talk about: meditation, attention to our emotions, attention to gratitude and appreciation, all the things I know that you value in the world, especially as parents too, because I know that's something you talk a lot about. And so end of January, my wife got really sick. We all had the flu. People get the flu, and people get colds, and I had it. My girls had it, and then my wife had it, and hers didn't go away. It got worse, and it got really serious, and she ended up in the ICU in the emergency room with life-threatening illnesses, all related from originally having the flu. And I talk a lot about it in the episode you referenced, and so people who want to kind of get into the more details. But basically, we went from having kind of what I would consider an enchanted life. My wife and I have been together. It'll be 15 years in May. We have two wonderful daughters. We kind of, we've been living that LOA life, the law of attraction, and really focusing on appreciation. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't tell my wife how much I appreciated her. And so even in the context of all of that, what I refer to now as the unimaginable happened, where she was on the brink of leaving us. And my first moments in the hospital, I was actually in London when I got a call from my mother-in-law that she got rushed to the emergency room. And I was on the phone with my dad when I first learned that they had intubated her, which means they put a breathing tube down her throat to help her with life-saving breathing measures. And I showed up in the hospital after flying back, which was a crazy experience to be so far away during something so kind of uncertain. And when I showed up at the hospital, they were pretty clear that she didn't look great, and she didn't have, wasn't certain that she would make it through this. And so it became really clear that we had really only two things that we could do. One is to trust Western medicine and the doctors and the emergency personnel that were there for her. And then the other thing was to start praying and to start really focusing on what we wanted, which was her full and remarkable recovery. The last conversation I had with her prior to her going to the emergency room for the second time, actually, because I had taken her the week before when it was just the flu and they sent us home after giving her fluids. But she had said to me she'd listened to an interview on Oprah, and you could probably reference it or find it in the show notes. But there's a doctor who did research on the power of prayer and how he was able to prove that the patients that he prayed for had better results and better outcomes than the ones that did not get prayed for. And so
Interesting.
on Tuesday, the 28th, I believe it is, I put a message out on Facebook that Megan was in really critical condition and really needs all our help. And people started praying with us and with me. And that's kind of the beginning of the journey. And so she spent, 10 weeks in the ICU. She made it through all. She had some strokes. She had meningitis. She had sepsis. She had pneumonia. She had all of it. She had all the things that could take a person out in this life. And miraculously, she survived all that. And then she moved into the next phase, which was like, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, she was out of contact from us for about 2 weeks. They had her on full sedation where we couldn't communicate. And they'd say, it's for her own protection, just so she can heal. And also with the tube down your throat, it's not something you can really be awake for. So we really left in limbo for 2 weeks. Like, what was her brain function going to be like? What was her vitality going to be like? And so I think in the context of your show, that was also 2 weeks where I had to sort of be with my kids, and keep them in as much of a loving container as we could without scaring them or giving them false sense of safety or false sense of unsafety, right? And I think I know we met through Dr. Shafali, so I know a lot of people listen will have a clear referencing to that, but it was as good of an experience for me around just being with the as is and not adding to it, so it's like, yeah, like it was bad enough Megan was fully asleep at the hospital, and but I didn't need to add anything else more to that. And so that really helped me in a lot of ways. Just like when I was with my kids, I try to be as present with them and as loving and supportive as I could be. And at the same time, when I was at the hospital, I try to do the same with Megan. And a lot of tears were shed. A lot of fear got transmuted through prayer. I think that's a good place to just sort of pause for a second, and just for every scary moment, there was tears, and for every scary moment, there was a prayers to navigate that. So that's sort of how we just went along for weeks, days.
I love that. Fear was transmuted as prayer. I love that.
That's all we had. That's all I had. Like I never felt so, what I often refer to in the depths of my love for my wife, and the depths for our family, of our humanity, of our pain, of our suffering. All of it was there. And then also, I think the other part of the story is like there was other patients on the ICU. It wasn't just us. It was like there's all these families whose lives are being thrown into some new balance once you enter into that place. Like I think I wrote somewhere, no one leaves the ICU without shedding tears.
No.
No man, woman, or child. And I, if you have experience with a smile like that, you may have been through it. Like it's just something we all know, and until you do it, like I just had never really experienced that. I did have a sister-in-law die 11 years ago at the same hospital. And it was a really surreal experience being with my wife in a situation where she could die. And, I prayed directly to her, to Galit, and said, you keep her here. You do whatever you can. You need to block those pearly gates. You keep the light away, whatever you need to do, you keep her here. And I truly believe that all those efforts have led to Megan being home now with us, and for me to be on your show to be able to talk about this story.
That's awesome. I have to say, first of all, I mean, there's so many things I want to say, but first of all, I want to say how glad I am that we were finally able to connect today to make this happen, because I know life has been crazy for you and a little bit crazy for me, just in normal ways. But I know that the fact that we were able to connect today means that Megan continues to progress and feel better. So before we go any further, can you just give us a little update on how she's feeling?
Sure. So Megan is, even through all the IC, as soon as she woke up after that first couple weeks, she's just been a champion of grace and courage and, forward movement, like she's just always just moving forward. And right now she got home a little over 3 weeks ago. When she came home, she had a walker, and then she kind of let go of that. And now she's just using a cane. And then she's basically right now moving around without the cane even. And so she's getting more mobility. She lost a ton of weight in the process and her muscle mass. So she's really frail and really, it's everything. It's painful for her to move around the world. She also had a lung surgery. So she's healing from the part of her lung that they removed. And so she's definitely in discomfort. I often tell people, like, just going through a day is hard work for her. And that's really what she's focused on right now, is just trying to be in a good way and try to be there for the kids when they're around. It's really sweet. About a week or two ago, she started reading Harry Potter to our youngest, which is super sweet.
Oh my gosh.
So like, if you think about like her motherly duties, they're really stripped down, right? Like right now, her just being home is like enough.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and her just being able to eat at the table with us sometimes at the same time. So the bar for what we're expecting of her is greatly reduced from a motherly perspective, but it's just, she's home, and she's able to come in now. When she first got home, she couldn't even really go into the kid's bedroom and say goodnight. And now she kind of like can come in and say goodnight before she goes to bed herself. It's kind of this sweet experience for me where like, and it's also surreal where all three of my girls, I have a 10-year-old daughter who's 7, and now Megan who's 40, and they all kind of go to bed at the same time.
That's cute.
It is cute. And so that's her journey now. A lot of physical therapy, trying to get her to she needs to start learning how to build muscle again, something as human beings we don't ever think about. And
Right.
Muscle apparently is a foundational part of how our body moves. So when you don't have it, everything's harder.
Mm-hmm. Everything's hard. That's so true.
And she also has other things like her hearing in her left ear hasn't come back from meningitis or from the strokes. We're not sure why. She still has that severe hearing loss, but so she's also dealing with like an auditory world that is half muted. So she
Mm.
has a lot of things that she's like, but she doesn't complain. She doesn't go into woe is me. Sometimes obviously she shows some hard emotions around just the pain and the kind of the frustration of being limited. But
Hmm.
outside of that, she just keeps moving forward, just trying to get through the day, try to be in a good way. She doesn't take it out on any of us. You know,
She's so incredibly strong.
yeah, she's a real model for all of us. I mean, we all have things that we could complain about, and it doesn't mean that we can't list them out, but we don't like, she's just such a good role model around not wallowing in them. Like,
Hmm.
it's okay to like acknowledge your side hurts or you have too much work or all these different things, but it's like, it's what, we get to be alive.
Hmm.
We get to be alive. And so
Absolutely.
we talk a lot about her kind of spirit animal through all this has been the hummingbird. People kept sending her hummingbirds. We've seen a lot of hummingbirds, and it has been another message in all this for us, which is like, yeah, there's all this hard stuff that happens in life, and no, it doesn't seem like anybody gets out of here without what I like to call the unimaginable. Right? You're shaking your head. You have your unimaginable that I could never understand because I didn't live through that, and you have it, and I have mine, and it is what connects us to the depths of our being. It's how we get out of the sort of surface level contact we all have with each other. Like, oh, how are you? How are the kids? It's like, no, we go deeper into
Hmm.
our unimaginable experiences. And through there, it transmutes again. Then we find the humanity. We find the deeper love we're after. We find the deeper connection. And the hummingbird as a messenger of sweetness and a continual search for sweetness. No matter what happens, we're going to look for the sweetness in our lives.
Mm. I love it. That's a perfect way to look at life. I love it.
Yeah, so that's the update on Meg, and she's been really sweet. I want to give a shout out to a program you could also add to the show notes. I think it's called Love It Forward, and I
Love
could say,
it forward.
yeah, Love It Forward. It's a woman in San Diego. I'm blanking on her name right now, but I'll send you her Instagram. But it's super sweet, and she added Megan to it. And I think Megan knew her through her Instagram community because Megan has a pretty big following at the Art Pantry. She could also add Megan has been a champion of children's creativity and imagination for a long time. And but so Love It Forward, people have been sending Megan fan mail from around the world,
Mm.
encouraging her and sharing their light on her. And it's been
Wow.
really touching. So even now, weeks after she's been home, every day I go to the mail, I'm like, Megan, you got fan mail. And she loves it. Each letter is, generally it's women, but some men. And it's heartfelt notes from people just like sending her blessings and sending her love.
Wow.
And I can see how it impacts her. It's like, wow, people care about me. People want to see me rise.
Hmm. And so that's Love It Forward. That's what this woman's program does.
Yeah, and
I love it.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, super sweet.
Wow. That is really cool. That's a good resource to have and to share for sure.
Yeah, and it's meant a lot because even when she was in the hospital, she was getting all these like we have a bag full of cards. We've kept them all, and it's super helpful, right?
Hmm.
Super helpful, and that's another interesting thing too through all this. Like, what is really helpful for us as humans, and can
Hmm.
we get good about asking for that specific help? Because I think that's something people struggle with, right? Like, what is helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to definitely dive into that, but before we go there, I wanted to say, number one, the reason I was shaking my head when you were talking about Megan's story is because I totally related to, I followed, for my listeners, I followed along with your journey every day. I was checking Facebook. How's Megan? Is there any update? What's happening? I didn't want to bug you too much because I knew you were inundated with just surviving and doing everything you needed to do for her and the girls. And so I was just kind of checking all the time to see if there's anything and is she getting better yet? No change. Oh my gosh, come on. She's got to get better. So my dad suffered a bad fall at work when I was a teenager, and he
Mm.
landed on his head. He had a seizure that threw him into a coma. He was in the ICU for a couple of weeks. He nearly died, but he didn't. And then my mom had an emergency surgery because of a digestive problem, and
Mm.
then she got a terrible infection, and she was in a medically induced coma for a couple of weeks to let her body heal. And so I've been there, been there. And so I can totally relate, even though it wasn't my spouse, it was my parents, and it doesn't matter who it is.
Well,
That
and that's the thing.
experience. is
it's that, and
universal.
that's why I just call it, that's your unimaginable, right? Like
Yes.
I haven't experienced that. My parents haven't had, and so it's like, but you're right. In that unimaginable, there's contact. There's a
Mhm.
place through which our hearts can have a sense of the anguish, and, and I think that's really what empathy is, right? It's having you have
Yes.
to kind of feel it. You have to experience something in some way close enough to really get it. And I thought I was an empathetic person before this. And if you followed me, right, like I've been a coach and a counselor and worked with people for a while, but like, I just had no idea how much deeper it goes. I just
Right.
said, like, that's the big, like, thing for me. It was just like, and even with the loss of my sister and like all these things, like I've had, like, I still just had no idea the depth when it gets so close to the center of your life, like your wife, your partner, your kid or your parent. Like it's right into the core of your whole being, the depths. I often talk about that. I better understand Rumi poetry after going
Yes.
through what Megan and I have gone through, and with the girls, and just the depths of love and how deep, like I never imagined Megan dying like all of a sudden. And so when I was
Hmm.
faced with that possibility, like we already have a very loving relationship, but it just was like miles deeper than I realized how important she was to me and how much I love her and how precious our life was. And
Hmm.
yeah, so yeah.
So this gets me to an interesting thing that I wanted to talk to you about or ask you about. I used to, and it's about prayer.
Mhm.
I used to pray for a specific outcome for me or for someone I cared about or whatever, whatever the situation was. I prayed for something specific. But as I've grown and evolved and changed over the years, my prayer is slightly different now.
Mm.
And I don't usually tell people this, and now I'm going to tell everybody
Mhm.
because
Good for you.
I don't know if the person who's asking for the prayer would be offended by it. But what I pray for now is that the person or the people who are going through the experience have the strength to get through it and then deeply learn whatever lessons there are to learn. So I don't necessarily focus on the outcome as much as focusing on the strength that the people need to get through it. And I kind of feel like what I've always struggled with prayer in general is, sometimes someone will pray for an outcome and they'll get it. And then sometimes someone will pray for an outcome and they won't get it. And I've heard of, I think you probably know this, but I don't know if you do. The other unimaginable in my life is that my oldest daughter died of a heart defect when she was a baby.
Mm.
And so, talk about specific prayer. I was laser focused in what I was asking for. I was asking for her to live, and it wasn't meant to be. And so, that is the pivotal moment in my life when my parents were both in those unimaginable situations. They both eventually came out of it. But for her, she didn't. And so that was the pivotal time for me that said, wait, it's not necessarily so much that I get the outcome I'm looking for as I learn what I'm supposed to learn through it. Because then I would hear other people whose children, after she died, I would hear other people whose children were in some kind of a predicament, life or death situation, and they prayed, 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 and then the child lived, and they said, "Oh, God answered my prayers." And then I would think, well, God answered your prayers, but did he not answer mine? I think he answered my prayers, but I wasn't asking. He was answering what I didn't know to ask for.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so specifically when I was thinking about Megan, I mean, I love the thing that you were focused on, her full and remarkable recovery.
Mhm.
I really loved that. Even though it's outcome focused, I really did think it was really a powerful vision to hold in your mind and to collectively share that with anybody who wanted to also hold that vision. And as I thought about that vision, and I thought, well, do I think Megan's going to live through this situation? Do I think she's not going to live? And what I ultimately came to in my own heart was I really felt like Megan was going to live because I felt like the two of you individually and collectively would make so much good come out of this terrible, unimaginable situation for yourselves and other people, that the outcome that was right in this case was for her to survive. So that's kind of what I was thinking about it. What do you think
I
about
just
that?
really love that we're talking about prayer, because that
Mhm.
is really my, like on my wall right now, there's these notes a friend of mine's been helping me jot out, kind of visions and things like, what do I do with myself? And on the wall, I'm looking at it, it just says like, how close to prayer can I get with my life's work, And so I love that we're now just taking a little time to just talk about prayer, and it is charged. And like you said, when you were sharing your story, like I could feel the pain of thinking a thought like, wait, someone else's prayers got answered and mine didn't. So like, it's God have a thing against me, or the universe is like not answering my, like that is so painful. Right. And so, and I don't think that's actually how it is. I think we're,
Right.
there is no favoritism. Like, I don't think it's like
No,
that really, but
absolutely
I
no.
think the thing about prayer for me, in the context of like, let's even play out the map that Megan didn't make it. The prayer was so helpful for me, to have that vision, to be able to go home to my kids and not spend every waking hour going, oh my God, is Megan going to die? Oh my God, what's going on? Oh, now she has this thing going on, and they put a brain drain in, and what are her levels of oxygenation right now? Like, and I could have done that, and I did do that. And it was the prayer that righted me, like if we're a ship, it's like the prayer gives us, that you set the sail, you were praying for your little sweet angel baby, that you wanted to make it, she didn't, but you kept the trajectory of your life, and the prayer is that point, I think. And so you're right, the outcome, you could set sail for a destination and end up at an island a little over, but you'll get close. It's like, and I know your daughter is a blessing on your life, and a spirit that's been with you and guided you, and I can feel it, and I know good things have happened in your life since that. So it's like, I think the prayer is the focusing agent that gives us access to the universal energy that I like to call the source of all life. I don't have any problem with using God. I think Dr. Dan Siegel freed me of my God issues when he said that God is the generator of diversity. And
I
thought
love that.
perfect. And I was like, oh, I'm free. I have no issue with God now. Like, but I do often just refer to the source of all life, because I think it's an energetic, and prayer is the, it's the vehicle, or the agent to get on that vibration. So if I sit and pray, and I think that for me, it's like, while I had this kind of meta prayer for Megan's full and remarkable recovery, I had micro prayers. I mean, there was so many times in my car where I just was so scared and so fearful of like things that are natural, but for me to be fearful of, like my daughters losing their mother, me losing my wife, like all these things. And then I'd be bawling my eyes out driving down the freeway and just saying like source of all life, like help me with this. Like, let this, like, help this feeling pass. Like, take this fear away from me. And that's where prayer for me becomes a much more powerful tool for the kind of the suffering human, which we all are, to tap into the thing that we want, to tap in to the thing that we most need help with. And I think that's the other part, is like, God, how vulnerable are we when we find ourselves with a family member in the ICU and we have to hold it all together. We're so vulnerable. We're so unable to keep, like, you literally can't keep doing what you're doing when life does this to you. You can't, I mean, I'm trying not to curse right now because I imagine it's a PG show, but like it's true though. Like, there's reasons why we have these words, because like things get F so fast that like you cannot keep working a full-time gig. You can't, like, your wife's in the hospital, your kids are scared. You're going to have to stop living the way that you were living. And in my case, I had to stop. Before Megan got sick, just a glimpse into my life and how transformative this had been, I was flying to Los Angeles every week for a job that I took. So I was leaving Monday, coming back Thursday. I was in London when this happened. So I was flying I was not a home person. And as soon as Megan was in the ICU, it was like my whole life was like, and I don't, I'm a home bird now. I'm the center of my family. I'm the dad who's being a lot like a mom right now. I take care of my girls. I take care of Megan, and I have to get help. If I want to go see a client, I got to see if Megan's sister or grandma could come over, or I need help. And I like, people wanted to set me up with meal plans, and I was like, no, I'll be all right. And then I was like, no, I won't be all right.
No.
And I was like, I've always loved the parable of the man who's in the house and the flood is coming. Do you know that one?
I don't know. Keep talking.
It's pretty quick, but so a man's in the house. He's a very faithful person, believes in God. And people say, hey, a big flood is coming. And he says, no, I'll be all right. God's going to save me. And they pass him by, and the waters rise, and a boat comes. And then basically goes through this whole thing until he's dead and he's in, and God says, well, I sent you a boat, a helicopter, a
People, yeah.
and you never accepted my help. And so I
Right.
was in that position where I was like, oh, I get it. So God's sending angels at me. I'm praying for help. Someone wants to set me up with a meal train. Okay, great. I won't stop you. And that became kind of a phrase that Megan's mom and I started using. And it kind of was a guiding light for me, and it's sort of speaking to what you're saying about what is help and people not sure if they want to reach out. And it was kind of like, I'm not going to stop people. Like someone wants to donate money, or if someone wanted to donate a meal, or they wanted to come over and help me with something. A friend fixed my front gate. Like I just didn't stop people at some point. I just was like, I need all the help I can get. And so the parts of me, the hardened parts of this man that was like, I can do it all myself. I don't need anyone. I'm an American. I have my family. I'll work, like crumbled, like just to the core, to the point where like prayer just rushed in. And that's kind of where my life sits now, right? Where I just know I need more help, even in this moment, right?
I love it. Well, so now I have more things to say. I think that I'm not going to stop you, or I won't stop you, is a great mantra. When we go through these unimaginable times, the people who we know, it's shocking. I'm sure you've been shocked too. It's shocking that sometimes the people you think will show up don't, and the people you never expect are just coming out of the woodwork. It's amazing.
That's true.
So that's a really shocking thing to experience. But that second one, I think, is even more comforting and humbling. There are so many people who care so much more than we ever realized.
Yeah.
And when someone, and even people we don't know, in this case with social media, even people we don't know can care about us, and we can accept the support of other people that are strangers. And I think the reason that people can care about people that they don't even know is because that common thread of the unimaginable and the prayer, it raises the compassion in us. And so when we see someone else struggling or suffering, we just want to help. And I won't stop you is so great, I think, because when we watch someone in a situation like yours has been, we feel helpless. So we want to do something. We know we can't make Megan better. We can't take away the infection. We can't make her wake up, but we want to do something. So maybe we want to make a meal. Maybe we want to donate. Maybe we want to fix your gate. And by allowing people to do those things for you and your family, it's a gift to the giver, because it allows them to feel like they're doing something to help you in a situation where they feel helpless. I mean, so the prayer is something that's like an intangible, energetic thing they can help with. And then those tangible things like donating, fixing your gate, making you meals, those are tangible. But those are, I think, sometimes more beneficial to the giver than they are even to the receiver, who desperately needs the help.
Oh, there's definitely times where like there was like a flood of food and I couldn't manage it, and I started to kind of feel a little bit overwhelmed by it. And then I just went, oh, this is just energy and I can circulate it. And so I took the extra food and I just took it right with me to the hospital and gave it right to the nurses. And the night nurses, I'd show up with this whole meal and they'd be like, great. And it didn't matter if it was candy. Like I just kept that energy moving versus like throwing it in the garbage or, and there was moments like that where what you're saying really felt true to me, where I was like, oh, somebody's giving something. It's good. Like I'm just being an agent of receiving so they can give, because we're so disconnected and we so desperately want to connect on a deeper level. So something like this happened and you're right, people rush in, and people we haven't seen. I had people come in my door who I haven't seen in 5 years, and I'd open the door and I just said, welcome back, and I knew the love was always there. I never doubted their love. It's just, if you have kids in this country, you're busy. If you have kids and you work, you're overwhelmed and probably tired and stressed out. Like it's just, and so you don't see people sometimes for years, not because you don't love them, but because you're not in the same play group anymore. Your 2-year-old is now 10 and your kids don't play baseball or soccer or dance or gymnastics. You don't do the same things after school. And so then time just, or you move to a new city 50 miles away or whatever the things are. But then as soon as something like this happens, the unimaginable strikes in a family, the love, people just go, oh my God, I love those people so much. Well, like, I need to go there. I need to go be with them. And listening to that, I think, is a powerful force. And The other thing I do want to say is that I also learned about not stopping people, but I also learned about my own strength and power around boundaries. And I
That's a
had
good
to
one.
really protect my family and my kids. And so one of the first things I remember doing was my girls were getting bombarded, or people would come up to me after school and say, "How's Megan?" And so I wrote a note I think I even posted on Facebook, but it was really
You
addressed to
did.
the school community, and they picked it up and got it, which was just like, please don't come up to me at school pickup. That's a sacred time of kids reuniting and going home. And like, they don't need to hear medical stuff, and they don't need to hear your pain right now. And
Right.
they don't want that. They want school to be as normal, which is funny for my kids. They were like, and apparently I've heard from other parents, like they just wouldn't talk about it too much enough, but like it was their sacred, safe place away from all of this. And school was so helpful. I mean, if my girls didn't have school, I don't know how I would have got by some of those early weeks, because it was like, you're going to school, like, and you're okay, and we're okay. Your mom's okay. She's asleep right now, or she's awake and just writing, or, whatever it was okay. Like, it was just back to the as is. This was our lives. This is our lives right now. And how we show up to those things is the defining thing. Like, I look at the last 3 months plus, and I go, I could see how people could take a situation like this and all of a sudden give themselves a reason to be in a bad way, to drink more, to leave the house, to have family take care of the kid, like to do all those things. I have no judgment on anybody who would consider doing that, because like, this is a lot. But for me, I've been practicing all these things. I've been praying for a while. I've been going to prayer ceremonies. I've been meditating daily. It wasn't a time to just stop being the good people we are. And so Megan didn't stop being her. I'm trying not to, and are we perfect? No. Do I have moments? Of course. Like, I would say that's one of the harder parts that I do want to speak more about as I get through this, especially for all the people going, like, this feeling of having to be perfect, to have to like have no emotional volatility in the home because like I'm the safe parent, I think is so tremendously overwhelming. And I know I'm not alone in feeling that. I think a lot of parents feel that all the time, especially if the mom is the peaceful, loving one and the dad's the more aggressive. Like, if we play the classic archetypes, then the mom feels like, I can never snap because dad's kind of does it too much. So the mom is like, but I just think the idea of having to try to be a perfect modulated human being is close to impossible. And I don't know. I just encourage us all to find safe places to off that gas, so to speak, because then we can be in a good way, and we don't, like, I have a teacher who says to me, you want to know how you're feeling? Just go see how you're behaving towards your children. Because if I'm snapping
Ooh,
at
I like
Aura,
that.
who's 7, Aura's 7, she's the sweetest thing in the whole world. Is she a handful? Hell yes. Is she like off the charts, creative thinker and free-minded and powerful and all those things? Yes. And so if I'm getting short with her or snapping with her, it's because I am overwhelmed, because I am feeling sad or frustrated or, tight. And
Right.
so my behavior shows me that. And then I soften, like, I do feel like these girls, my daughters, have been through a lot. It's a scary thing to have a really sick mom. It shakes you to the core. Mom is a superwoman, and Megan is a superwoman, and has always been a superwoman to them. And now Supermom is having to go through an unbelievable transformative healing journey. But I think for the girls, they feel it. They see that she's been wounded, and so it does add a little bit more to my plate to hold them a little kinder, a little sweeter, a little more gently, and to help us, just keep moving forward.
One of the things that I loved that you did for them early on, and I know that you carry this through to the best of your ability every day, is there was a time when she was in the ICU, I believe they were not allowed to see her, right? Not that they necessarily would have benefited from seeing her with all the tubes and wires and everything, but it's hard to go from, one day everything's fine, mom's a little sick, to, okay, what happened to mom? Where is she? What's going on? And I love that you just kind of said, oh, she's resting in the hospital and she's healing, she's working on healing, and it's okay. Like, you just kept it real, but at such a comforting, neutral level that I think that there's probably nothing you could have said to them that would have been better to help them to stay as neutral as they could. I'm sure of course they missed her. I'm sure they were worried about her, but you just kept reassuring them. She's resting, she's healing. You can't see her right now, but soon you will. And I think that there's a huge lesson in that for all parents, because how many times do you come, because I know I do, how many times do you come across a parent who unknowingly is passing their anxiety or fear or stress about something? They're just leaking it onto their kids, and then their kids are stressed and anxious or angry, snapping and being disrespectful, and they're getting frustrated with their kids and not realizing that they're feeding into that system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the way you handled them or supported them in those early days is there's such a valuable lesson for parents.
And it feels magical looking back on it. Like I do feel like we were held in something really sweet and like angelic almost, that like we did navigate those earliest, scariest weeks without them having as much trauma as I think they just from the, like they got whatever trauma they got from the whole thing. But
Yeah.
I don't think like, and I think partly it was, going back to the as is, I didn't add projection. I didn't say a lot, oh, your mom could die today. I said, she's really, really sick and they're doing everything they can to help her get better. And she's sleeping right now. So we can't really talk to her. They have her on medicine that keeps her sleeping because it's safer for her. And I just gave it to them kind of what I had. And I didn't add, I didn't add the projection or the anxiety. I just like, that was what is. And I mean, my heart broke a million times every time they asked me, when do you think mommy might come home? And we didn't know. Like we went a solid 8 weeks without any idea of when she could come home. It wasn't until about 8 weeks when it was like, okay, surgery, post-op, rehab, home at some point. Like we started to know maybe a month, but there was definitely at least a good 8 weeks where we had no idea. Like literally, I didn't know if it was gonna be 6 months. They don't know,
Right.
Humans, what's so amazing is what they're able to do on a symptomatic level and on a like from the doctors, and how little they still know about what happens. They're like, oh, if we do this, then that'll hopefully relieve that, but they don't. So yeah, I think from a parenting perspective, not adding all that. But I also just want to share with everyone listening, like there's definitely times where like I would call the nurse on the ICU floor at 11 or 12 at night because I wasn't there. I was with the girls at home. And I would just break into a million pieces and bawling my eyes out. And there was one time where Karuna woke up and came out and sat on my lap and I cried and we sat together. And, so I didn't also hide. I didn't try to pretend for them what I was going through. I just did it in a way that felt okay, felt real. It was just real. That's all. There wasn't, I didn't sugarcoat anything for them, and I didn't, isolate them as too much. We were all going through something together. And I think that was the big thing, is that I really listened to what they needed. They were very clear. They didn't want a whole bunch of people taking them home from school. They didn't want random, because that was like one of the things people offered all the time, especially for a dad. I think more so probably for a dad than a mom. I got more offers to take my kids away from me. And like, they could sleep over, we'll watch them. And it was like really the last thing my kids wanted. And so I just I honored that. And I was like, okay, I will pick you up from school and take you to school, and I will sleep at home. And then it was like, they didn't really want me going to the hospital before they were, I don't know. There was all these things they wanted that I just kept trying to it was like a puzzle piece. I was like, okay, so you want this, then I'll do this in response to it, because you're getting what you want. And they'd be like, okay, so for example, for like a month straight, I think I put them to sleep. And then at 9 o'clock, I would have someone come over, a neighbor, a friend. And then I would go back to the hospital to be with Meg till like 12 or 1 in the morning. And then I'd go home, sleep, wake up be there, take him to school, go back to the hospital. So I had this like crazy schedule I created, which was helpful for me in some weird way. Like schedules are routines. It just was easier. And then I noticed when she got better, I didn't need to go as much, but then the schedule. And so there's a reason we like routine. So I kind of created this crazy routine where I was going to the hospital twice a day, but still trying to meet my kids' needs. And I think that's something for me, like, as a kid who grew up in a divorced family where I don't think people really oriented to what I wanted, to the point where I don't even know what I wanted for most of my life. I know I'm not alone in that feeling. That I'm like, okay, for my kids, I can do do these basic things. Like, fine, I'll put you to sleep. And it's so funny. Their preference would be to have someone come over when they were sleeping than to have someone sit with them while they were awake. So I was like, all right, I got you. And that was kind of a big theme. I think I said to my daughters in the first 2 weeks, I got you, a million times. Like I got you. And it helped them to see my response to this was not to flee. Because that's, I think, where
Yeah.
kids get scared, right? And even, you touch on this in your shows, like parents whose parents are going through divorce, kids are going, who's got me?
Mm-hmm.
And if kids feel gotten by their parents, it creates some freedom and space because at least they know who got them.
And
And
some
so that,
safety.
yeah. And that's all we can offer. Because
It
it's like,
is.
especially when someone gets sick like this, I'd be lying to my kids if I told them that everything is always going to be hunky dory. They're 10 and 7, and they already got a glimpse into the real realities of life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to protect them from the news or this shooting or that. Like, they got their own unimaginable
Yeah,
in their
right
life.
at home and at home.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I think that you did not do, which is so helpful, is that you didn't project, like you weren't projecting your fear or the worst case scenario onto them, but you also weren't, like you could have easily projected anxiety onto them in the way of, that's my cat who just stopped by. You could have easily projected pity onto them. Oh, you poor girls, your mom, you can't be with her. I'm so sorry for you.
Yeah.
Or, oh, this must be so terrible for you. But you didn't dump a lot of that added energy onto them. You just said, yeah, this is a tough time. I got you. She's resting and healing. The doctors are doing everything they can. And how can I make this easiest for you? Like you just presented a real scenario to them, but also such stability and such confidence. None of us have any control. Really, we don't. And these unimaginable experiences point out just how little control we have. So the schedules are comforting to us because it's our way of like pretending like we have control, and maybe we do have control until something boom happens and then the schedule goes out the window. But I think you presented such a stable scaffolding around them to say, okay, there's chaos, but I'm here and we're going to get through this one way or the other. And you tell me what you need and I'll do my best to honor it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that reflection. I don't think I really just sat in that and acknowledged that that's kind of what I was doing with the scaffolding and just trying to create a container that's like just how can we get through this in the best way possible? And I think context is also important. Like I have a nephew, niece, and 2 nephews and a niece who grew up without a mom, who died when she was very young. And I was there for that. And so I knew that once was not going to die so likely as the likelihood that it was like, okay, you still have your mom here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like not everybody gets to have their mom come home
Mm-hmm.
after something like this. And I think also prayer, I think the other part that I just think is important to add in this discussion is that I used to make this joke when I still do work with Yale University in their emotional intelligence lab. And if you look at schools are flooding themselves with mindfulness and EQ programs. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
social emotional learning. It's all about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to joke that the reason we need all that is because, and why they didn't need it before, is that you used to pray at school. Kids used to get on the side of their beds and pray. And when they did that, they were expressing the things they had emotions about.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it was Jesus or Moses or Muhammad, whatever your religious orientation is, they would get into a place and go, please help me with the kid who's being not nice to me at school. And parents could hear it and the community could, and through that expression, because that's all anybody wishes their kids would do, right? Oh, just talk about it. Let's talk about your feelings. And prayer is one of the most authentic and vulnerable ways to release that which is so close to us, but so unshared. And so for my girls, there were definitely times where like I would just make a prayer for all 3 of us, and they would either acknowledge that part of my prayer was true. We often use more indigenous and Native American language like aho. So if someone makes a prayer and someone says aho, that basically is a way of saying that your prayer is my prayer too.
That's
And
beautiful.
so I could pray for all 3 of us, and the girls would get a chance to release the thing that's so tight to them, that we hold so close, right? And that's what vulnerability is, right? We take that thing that we hold so close and we give it airtime. We share it with people. And I think prayer is a gateway to that kind of vulnerability. And I think for my kids, it was helpful too. Even if they didn't want to say anything, for me to just pray in front of them around what their mom was going through, around what we want for her and our family. And I think that also made a difference that they had those moments of, all right, daddy's putting the good work out in the universe of what we want, and not just focused on the anxiety and the overwhelming nature of becoming a full provider for my family. I didn't see that coming. Megan Megan held down the fort in ways I can't even articulate. She's just been a really amazing and solid wife and partner and all those things. And to all of a sudden have that, just like a vacuum, just gets sucked out of our system, and me have to step into it.
It's shocking.
It's shocking. And it's funny how much more I relate to moms right now, to stay at home, to single moms. My heart, to anybody watching this who's a single mom or a single dad, God, my heart goes out to you 24/7, 7 days a week. It's on you all the time. You never can go out for dinner with a friend unless you get a baby. Like, you just can't make any moves. And I just, I have so much respect and empathy, and just, I don't know. I just, like, those are my people right now, I feel like. And even though Megan's here and I have my partner to some extent, like, she doesn't have the capacity to be there for me in the way that she did before this, right? She just needs to focus on her healing and being as kind, as sweet as she can muster. But, you know, even on an intimacy level, if you're a single parent, you don't have necessarily someone to hold you at the end of a day. You're not, you know, you don't have the passion and the kind of romance that is so fun and vital for humans. You really have to just somehow stay vital on your own and be there for your kids and make it work. And it is, you know, I just think if there's another thing for me that I'm curious about and want to talk more about, you know, with people who are curious, it's just like, how do people navigate that? How do people navigate a new form of intimacy where you can still receive the love that is so wonderful to receive without it becoming something else, or making this decision that you just have to live without it? And I think that's the thing people, like, just decide, like, I'm just going to not have that in my life. And so I just, you know, my philosophy is like more hugs. You know, like, I never say no to a hug. I never say no to somebody who wants to come hang out at our house, you know, and then back to the boundaries. If it doesn't work for us, doesn't work for us, always 100% end of sentence. Like, I never let someone come over if the girls don't want to visit her, if Megan now doesn't like, and so there is this really beautiful way for me that I went from, like, receiving all this help and also becoming really boundaried and honoring myself and knowing what is too much or what doesn't work, or providing the boundaries for my daughter. So all that is possible.
I think you have earned a lifetime's worth of learning in the first quarter of 2019.
Is it still 2019? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I can't believe it's almost May. I think, and then maybe that's a good place too, is like, you know, when we go through these kind of experience, like I'm going through, we're still in it. You know, I think, like, even doing the show, I feel like, okay, like, yes, there's a story, but I'm still in it. You know, like, I'm still thinking about how to start working more while caring for everybody more or the same, and how to hold that, right? I got to be the earner for the family, and I got to be the caretaker, and I got to be the source of stability and love to keep the house vibrant. So what does that mean I got to do? I mean, it's a good ending place, but I got to take care of myself. I have to practice self-care.
Amen.
I got to go to the gym. I got to eat well. I got to pray with my brothers and sisters and my spiritual family. I have to, and I can't use it as an excuse, like, I'm so busy. Like, I got to take care of the family, and I'm going to sell, because I won't have the vitality. That's really what I'm realizing today. Like, for me to stay vital, because I'm not going to get the vitality just from, like, for example, like sexual intimacy. That's not available to me, right? I think a lot of men tend to fall on that. Like, oh, if I just had that, then I'll be excited. And it's just not, and I don't think that's true in those situations either. I think, especially for men, the view of intimacy is, you know, it's a whole show in itself.
Yeah.
But I'm being forced to jump into that more deeply now, because it's like my lifetime partner and love of my life. Like, that's not something that is available at all. Right. So I have to, it's not like a relationship goal. It's not like, oh, we should go to, like, a counselor and work. It's like,
no.
It's not there. It's like a very different experience to it.
Right.
That I'm being, like you said, I'm getting a master class in it.
Right. I am really excited to see, well, first of all, before anything, I'm really happy with how well Megan is doing. I mean, that's the most important thing. Yeah. I'm so happy, as we all are, that she's on the road to recovery. I'm so happy that you're finding the ways to put the scaffolding around her and the girls and yourself to get through this very difficult time. And I know that the lessons are just pouring in from every angle. And I'm excited. I would like to have you on a couple more times. Like, I want you to come back and touch base with us and tell us where things are soon, you know, sometime soon, because I just can envision this beautiful something coming out of this beautiful gift for others coming out of your experience, because I think you went into it more aware of these intangible things like energy and the law of attraction and prayer, you meditation and mindfulness. You went into it already connected to those things, and now you're even more deeply and personally connected to them. And so I think that I just know you're going to be a beacon of hope and inspiration for so many people. So I'm really excited to see what comes of it as you progress through this
Yeah,
time
thank
with
you.
your family.
No, I really appreciate the opportunity. It does feel kind of like I could see coming back. It's fun and helpful for me to just process some of this out loud and talk. And I think, a good ending point is just like, yeah, like if we're gonna see our life as a blessing, we're gonna be grateful for our life. I don't know that we get to hit the pause button on that just because the unimaginable happens. We have to kind of ride that wave. And there's a video I watched by a guy named Yogi Bhajan who really talks about this idea of like a burden is like there's so much value in a burden. Like the greater the challenge, the greater the value, the greater the burden, the greater the value. And somewhere along the way, I listened to that and it really hit me. It's like, oh, okay, like, right. Like as scary and as hard as all of this is, there's tremendous value for us as human beings to evolve and to grow and to emerge somehow intact. And I think, when people talk about how well Megan is doing and be really excited, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, and it's just as much of a miracle that my kids are doing as well as they are, that I'm doing as well as I am, that Megan's sister, who's 7 months pregnant now, so is really in the prime part of her pregnancy, all this happened and she's doing great. And like that's the miracle. The miracle is that you can go through something like this and that we all could be still blessed and still touched by whether we want to call it God or the source of our life. And then I think the part you're speaking to is like, how do we show up after that beacon of light, so to speak? Like that's why I have notes on my board, like how close can I get to prayer, right? How comfortable. And I just want to really thank you so much for allowing there to be space in our time together to talk about prayer. And we walked in a little bit into that place of like the charge of prayer and why people, but to me, I think that's the place, right? It's so many people are walking away from religion because religion has caused so much pain in people's lives. And some people still, if you're still in religion, it's great. You get to be okay with prayer. But for everybody outside of that, it's this really tough journey, like you are articulating around, can I still pray? What does prayer mean to me? Like, is that something I have access to? And I think the answer is yes. And I think that it feels good. It feels much better to be in that place than to cast off prayer, because then we just end up in that lonely, isolated place that's so prevalent in our society. It can be a really lonely, dark place. And so prayer is that portal in any moment to going from lying in bed feeling totally alone to feeling totally connected to everything that is life and everything that is the source of all of our joy and happiness.
I love it. I love it. Aaron Schiller, thank you so much for this time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This has been so much fun. And I wish you the best of everything on this healing journey that you're experiencing and walking with Megan. I hope for her continued recovery, and I'm just so grateful that you are you're just walking the walk, talking the talk. You are a living embodiment of how to show up. You say that Megan is full of grace, and yes, I agree with you, but I think you're full of grace too. So thank you for being a graceful example for the rest of us.
Thank you. Really appreciate you.